How do I identify bad advice when it comes to business valuation? If someone comes to you and says valuators, which is someone like me, a valuator, are just using numbers out of a black box, I'm telling you now, run. Here are two reasons why you should run. The first reason is with no malintent. They're just pure intent, but they just don't understand what a valuation is. It's like you're taking a writer and you're putting them into an accounting field. They're not going to understand, have no meaning to them. It just doesn't work that way. Or you're taking someone that loves doing office work and putting them outside, or someone blue collar work inside, like it has no value to them. It's just different. They just don't have that type of mentality. The next one is, in my opinion, a little bit manipulative because they know the value of it, but they're telling you, let's just go based off some magical number. Usually when that happens is because they might be lowballing you in the future or something, or they plan on acquiring you, or there's something involved. My experience, usually people that do that have a little bit of experience in valuation, but mostly on the buy side, or they're trying to consolidate something. So if you come across something like that, just in both cases, run. Because the first one doesn't really understand, can't really articulate the value because they really don't understand it. The second person does understand it. However, it just manipulative. They just want to take advantage of it in some way, shape, or form. So if you do, always get a valuation. I don't believe it's enough to tell you to run, but I'm going to give you some other ways on how you can compare and understand valuation in different industries. There's a whole bunch, but I'm trying to use a few topics that are very native to me so I can explain it to you. So the first one is going to be real estate. In real estate, let's say someone is selling their house. Now, they're going to call a real estate professional. They're going to come by and they're going to do a lot of analysis, particular to that field, because that's what they do. They're going to look at different comps. What was sold in the last 6 months. They're going to compare it to a lot of other markets and a lot of like neighboring cities or neighboring towns or wherever that may be, just so you can find valuation. You can't just wake up in the morning and be like, my house is going to be worth $2 million. It doesn't work like that. Well, you can do that, but you're not going to get any value out of it because you know the principles are just going on assumption when there's actual practices that go, principles they have to follow. Here's a more concrete example to try to bring in the thought of why the valuation does matter. So let's say, for instance, you're going to sell your house. You call a real estate agent. That agent is going to come over and he's going to ask you a whole bunch of questions about the house itself, the yard, the community. If they're a good agent, this is what they're going to do. Now, you give him the details about the house. Now, he still has to apply other details in order for him to conduct this market valuation. Let's say this house is a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom. It has a 2-car garage. And let's say it's 3,000 square feet. He's going to use that information and compare it to the last 6 months somewhere in the Flex MLS or the MLS system and use that as a guiding point to where to put you as far as the market. So let's say if you had 3 houses that sold in that same market for the same price, then he's going to apply that same information as a market analysis to see how much you're worth. Everything else is going to count as well based off that meeting, the improvements you plan on doing to it before selling, and anything else that's going to either drive the market price up or drive the market price down, but it's going to be relatively in the same place as far as everyone else. So these strategies, this is a very high level. They do a lot more than this, but these are some of the strategies on how they use to determine the house value. Are you guys seeing this? Because now we're getting to business value after the next example. I find this to be an interesting example because its valuation will present it differently. So let's say you're applying for a job, right? You have certain skill sets in the marketplace and there's a range for that. Depending on the skill sets to the company, depending on the role itself, they're going to value. So you apply for that job, they're going to look at your resume, you're going to speak to those skill sets to make sure, of course, you're telling the truth. And based off what you have, how many years of experience, they're going to compare you to someone else in that employment or that market and say, okay, you have Python coding skills, you have SQL coding skills, you have accounting skills. Okay, we're going to pay you $150,000. You may have other skill sets, but it might not be relevant for that market. And this is what HR or human resources people factor in because they're not really hiring for that skill set. Same thing when it goes back to the house. You might have something beneficial to the house. Let me say an extra fruit tree, 3 mangoes or something like that, but it doesn't matter. It's beneficial. It's a fruit, but it doesn't add any value to the house. So these are 2 examples when people say valuation is important. It is. And those are just 2 completely different examples just to help you guys understand that why valuation is important. And now we're going to get into why business valuation is important. So why is the valuation important? First, before I get into my thought process and our word talk, why would you not get a valuation in the first place? It's the number one thing that's going to tell you how much your business is worth. You're going to get a true value. You're not going to get someone that's going to overvalue your business or someone that's going to undervalue your business. You want to know what the true value is for. So why would you not get that? Especially if it's one of your most important assets. It's going to be the thing that you retire from or give to your family or your kids. So it doesn't really make sense. Why would you not get it? There's valuation being done in every aspect of our lives, but this is one of the most important one that carries assets for you and your family. So it doesn't really make sense why someone wouldn't. But for the ones that would, great. Now here's my perspective on why you should get evaluation for your business. When we do an evaluation, we're applying so much to what's going on. We're applying principles, theories, business models, management depth. We apply so much into economic research, industry research, equity research, regional stuff. There's so much that goes into it just so we can sell your most precious asset. We go through it line by line, teaching you everything you need to know. And these are coming from different points of view too. We're not just looking at one industry research report. We're comparing it to multiple. What is it saying? We're dissecting it. We're looking at so many aspects of your business and finding the most sound decision. Some decisions are not sound. For instance, you have COVID. If we were to do a business valuation pre-COVID, not knowing COVID was going to happen, it would have been different. So you can't read everything, but if it's public or if it's out there, we will know. On the other hand, you have people that don't believe in valuation, which, like I said earlier, I do believe is more of the manipulative way. They would just take an industry multiple and average it out and just sell based off revenue and net profit. You can't do that. Well, you can, but you're going to be misleading yourself and the person that you're buying or purchasing from. This is not a game. This is like serious. So if someone comes to you doing that, just know that they're doing the wrong way and they're just giving you a lot of misleading information. I wanted to add to that. I'm not saying you can't use a multiple towards revenue or net profit, but you have to filter, you have to clean the multiple because there's principles and approaches that go into that. Sometimes people just grab an industry multiple within a specific SIE code and grab whatever gets attached to that multiple. A lot of times they will come with a lot of credible comp for it, but in that mix will be a lot of bad comps. And sometimes if you take off one of those companies out of those comps, it changes the multiple drastically. So there's principles on how to apply stuff like that. But what I'm seeing now is people just multiplying it towards top line revenue or bottom line net profit, which is not the way to go. It has to be cleaned and has to be filtered out in order for you to use it the right way. And then you have to apply your approach to reconcile with something else to make sure you're doing it correctly. So there is ways to doing this. There's principles to do this. No one's taking anything out of a black box. There's actually approaches, principles, and so much more that goes into this. The point is you need a valuation. And there's multiple reasons why you will get it. Where you're bringing an investor in, you're trying to sell some equity, you're trying to get a certain type of loan, you're trying to sell your business, you're trying to buy your business, you're trying to consolidate, you're trying to acquire, you're trying to get more market share, you definitely need a valuation. So do not fly blind, not knowing what you're worth, because you're not going to be able to hold the value that you think your company can do. And it's always good to have it. Talk to someone like me or CPA or ASA. Certain CPAs don't have this, but certain type of CPAs do have it because you need that industry information about your business, how much your business is worth, so you can plan strategically. And like I said, valuation is everywhere. It's in your groceries. It's in the gas you put. That's why you compare it every time you drive by several gas stations. Valuation is everywhere. But do not go cheap of paying for a valuation on your business or not getting it all because you didn't understand the value of it. It is extremely valuable. Thank you again. Love talking to you guys. Talk to you soon. Have a great weekend if by the time you hear this video. Bye.